It's the most disappointing loss of the season so far for the Celtics. I'll tell you why every single one of their flaws was on display right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Beantown, be ever ready. It's the C's. Who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT, Karalis. We kept the madness every game, every practice. Primetime Depp and D White on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising business, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Your team is the Boston Celtics. I talk about them every day, Monday through Friday. Bonus podcasts when they play on weekends. So make sure you're subscribed. This show is free. It's available everywhere. It's on YouTube. Get into the comment section there. Share your thoughts with me. I'm John Karalis, beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a couple of books about the team. I've been covering this team for about 20 years. I've been doing this podcast for 10 years. So I love talking about this team, even when they lose to the Utah Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That was not a pretty game. The shooting is a major issue. I'll get to that in a little bit. In the second segment, I'll get into all of the worst flaws that were on display here. But I just have to start right off the top here that this was a disappointing loss. I'm sorry. I know that we're talking about a season where the wins and losses don't matter, but this was very disappointing to me, mostly because everybody after the game that spoke, Joe Mazzulla, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, everybody was talking about, well, the effort wasn't where it needed to be. Like, are you serious? Are you serious right now that the effort wasn't where it needed to be? And I know it's tough to keep that up every night of the an NBA season. It's a long season and all of that. I get it. But coming off of a blowout loss to Houston, you're at home, you're facing a bad team that was on a back-to-back that's coming off a blowout loss to Charlotte. And you come in here and they 14-2 run to start the game. And then you just kind of like, it just kind of fell apart. And the just that attention to detail, that effort. I mean, I don't know. Did you take the Jazz lightly? Because here's a news flash. After this game, after this win, the Jazz are ahead of the Boston Celtics in the overall standings. It's obviously early and, one game here or there changes everything. But as we speak on November 4th, 2025, the Boston Celtics are 3-5, and the Utah Jazz are 3-4. They're a half game again ahead of the Boston Celtics. So right now, on this one day, the Jazz can be like, we're better than the Celtics because they beat Boston and they're ahead of the Celtics in the standings. All of that is to say that there's no reason for the Celtics to not have that focus, that energy, that attention to detail for longer stretches. The third quarter was another abomination where the Celtics gave up 38 points. They gave up 69 points in the entire second half. That's too many. It's too much. They held the Jazz to 36 in the first half. That's great. 21 points in the first quarter, 15 points in the second quarter, then 38 in the third, which it's inexcusable. Like, that stuff is absolutely inexcusable. They allow the Jazz to shoot 13 of 18 in the third quarter. They shot 3 of 7 from the three-point line. They were 9 of 9 from the line, while the Celtics were 9 of 23 overall, 1 of 11 from 3, and 7 of 9 from the line. So the Celtics just lost every margin that exists here. They were out-rebounded overall 12-4. The Jazz had 8 assists to Boston's 4. The Celtics had, more steals. That's great. But, here's the thing. The Jazz had 5 turnovers for 5 points. The Celtics had 2 turnovers for 2 points. 5 turnovers shouldn't turn into 5 points. 5 should turn into 8 or 10. And that's, I think, an overall problem. One of the problems for the Celtics this season is they force turnovers, but they're not They're not cashing in. They're not winning the points off turnover battle the way they should. 19 turnovers for the Utah Jazz for 17 points. The Celtics had 10 turnovers, but they gave up 16 points. So how do you force, once again, almost twice as many turnovers than what you committed, but you only win the points off turnovers by 1? That's a big problem for the Celtics. So I look at this and think that this is just disappointing effort, disappointing execution, um, everything about it. And it's not about where they are in the standings. It's not about them making the playoffs or not. It's just about, I thought that this team was going to be putting in that maximum effort and making that incremental progress. And I know that progress isn't a straight line, but to let down against the Jazz when the Celtics are not in a position to let down, that is a problem for me. The like I said, the first quarter was great to start, and then another problem that the Celtics had is it's the fouls that they committed. They just keep committing fouls, bad fouls. They cannot rebound, even though the rebounding numbers look like, okay, 15 offensive rebounds to 10 offensive rebounds for Boston, and second chance points. The Celtics actually won the second chance points battle 19-13. They gave up 16 attempts though at the second chance points. And the Jazz, when you look at the advanced numbers, which advanced numbers are just, percentages, the Jazz offensive rebounding percentage was 41.7. They rebounded 41.7% of their misses, which puts Boston's defensive rebounding percentage at 58.3, which is abysmal. It's gross. The Celtics deserve to lose this game. And I will get to the foul call or no call and the absurd explanation here. But I don't want to even touch on that in the first segment, because even though in the vacuum, in that moment, Celtics down 47 seconds to go, Jaylen Brown gets, tripped and there's no call. Jaylen said after the game, dropping a couple of obscenities in the process. He said, well, yeah, that cost us the game. And yes, technically that could have cost you the game. There's no telling what would have happened at that point if the Celtics had gotten that foul call. But I don't even want to get to that, because that's not where the Celtics lost this game. In only the most technical sense can you say that cost Boston the game. The Celtics were down 1. So the Celtics, even if they're at the free throw line, you can't say that they're going to make both free throws. The Celtics are not guaranteed to make their free throws down the stretch. That's not something that they typically do. Where they 18 of 22 from the line. Okay, 82% is fine. But this is more about the Celtics giving up these offensive rebounds and giving up shots that they should be challenging better, and turning the ball over and fouling like crazy. All of these things, that's where this loss came. The Neemias Queta box out, quote unquote box out on Nurkic at the end was abysmal. I'm going to talk about that and why I'm bothered by that as much as I am. And we'll get into all of the Celtics flaws that were on display here. We'll do that when I come back. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. You know that Game Time is going to hook you up with the best prices on tickets to an NBA game. And hey, look, the way this season is going, there'll be tickets available at the best possible prices, especially when you get there in the last minute. If you want to get to the Garden, if you want to check out a basketball game, this is the time to go, because I don't think people are going to be flocking to these games, all the time. A Wednesday night game against the Wizards, if you want to get into an NBA game, check out Game Time. Right before the game, just head into town. There'll be plenty of tickets available. And as you get closer to the game, as you get closer to game time, the prices tend to drop. So open up that app. You get great seats in minutes. What you see is what you pay for. There's no hidden fees at the checkout. I've used this app plenty of times. It's super quick. It's just a few taps. If you want to go for a zone deal, you pick a section. They'll give you the seats, and that saves you money. There are some NBA tickets on Game Time for like $25. So go ahead, take the guesswork out of buying these tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. If you're a first-time user, you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKED, Locked On NBA, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Check out Locked On NBA and Locked On NBA Game Night. That's your second and third listens. Game Night is a Monday. Well, it's a 7-day-a-week podcast. I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison. I also filled in on the Monday show because, we fill in for each other when we need to. But it covers every game every night on Locked On NBA Game Night. And then the big stories like the Ja Morant situation, the New Orleans Pelicans situation, that's being covered in extensive fashion on Locked On NBA, the midday show. Find that where you found this show. Every show on Locked On is free. So the Neemias Queta, Queta had a decent beginning to the game. He had a couple of nice moments. He was on the floor for the opening 14-2 run. He was on the floor for the comeback. So his plus minus looks good, but there are a lot of minuses in there for Queta that I just cannot overlook. And the box out, quote unquote box out on Nurkic at the end, Queta had an opportunity for 2 free throws. He missed one. You come on down to the other side of the floor. You play, decent defense. The shot goes up. Queta has a body on Nurkic in the middle of the lane. But one of the things that I've been on Queta for, and I just can't get past it, physically, his base, it's terrible. He does not have a strong base. And you can see it in the way he moves. And no matter how well he plays, I'm never going to like the way he moves on the floor. I don't think he is in control of his body the way most athletes, even athletes of his size, are in control of their bodies. He just seems to flail around sometimes, and his base is weak. I've said this before. He tends to be knock-kneed. His legs turn inward. That takes away power from your base. He is not strong. His legs are not strong. For all of the athleticism that he has, he does not have a strong base, and you saw it. Nurkic pushed him from the middle of the lane to under the basket, and Queta couldn't even jump for the rebound. Look, if a guy is out of position because of the way the shot went up, I'll give him a pass. If the other player has position and it's just tough to get around, I'll give him a pass. But there's one thing I know about. It's rebounding and getting in position and getting down low and getting your butt on that guy's quad, getting that strong base and being able to ride with him as he tries to that is basic rebounding. And if you can't get down there and get strong, get low, and hold off a guy that's trying to push you under the basket, then that is a problem. That is a problem. That rebound should have been Neemias Queta's without any issue. We could have gone into overtime, could have been a timeout. I don't remember exactly if they had, I think they had one timeout left. Don't know exactly how it would have gone after that. Maybe they would have lost anyway. But that was his rebound to get and to be pushed under the basket, to give up that rebound, the inability to jump for it bothers me incredibly, because that is poor, poor, poor rebounding. The Celtics have a rebounding issue. The bigs that they have are not good rebounders, and it's up to everybody. The Celtics have not figured this out completely. And I know that you can say, well, they in the 3 wins, they rebounded better. But that Jazz game, I'm sorry, the Pelicans game, look at the Pelicans. They're a disgusting mess. They do not rebound. They do not play hard. So, yes, they beat that team. The Cavaliers do not rebound. They're not a good rebounding team. And on top of that, Donovan Mitchell disappeared after early in the second quarter. Scored 15 points in 10 minutes, 12 minutes, or whatever it was, and then didn't score again. Right? So the Cavs played like crap. They're not a good rebounding team. They couldn't punish the Celtics. The Celtics won that game. Good win, but also not the type of team that punishes the Celtics. Even the Sixers, Barlow was out. He had 5 offensive rebounds against the Celtics. They won that game. I'm not trying to take anything away from the win, but I'm also saying that you look at the Houston game and you look at this Jazz game, and size and strength bothers the Celtics, and they are going to have problems in these situations, which is one of their flaws. They cannot rebound at all. The Celtics shot terribly, and I'll get more into the shooting slump in a minute, but their flaw of bad shooting right now is not just that Derek and Peyton and, maybe other guys aren't hitting shots that they were like. Sam Hauser was 1 of 8. So, okay, make miss league. I can live with that. They also have guys that are not the best shooters in the world taking 3-pointers. Like Josh Minott is capable of hitting them, but he's not a reliable 3-point shooter. Luka Garza is capable, but he's not reliable. Even like Chris Boucher, he can hit them. He hit 1 of 2, but how much can you count on that? So they have guys that you aren't, that aren't normally good 3-point shooters, also taking some of the shots. And then you have some regression to the mean. Jaylen Brown, 0 for 9 in this game. He's 0 for his last 11. He shot 48% in October, and he's 0 for 11 in these 2 November games. Now his overall shooting percentage from 3 is down to 38%. You go from, oh my God, he's hitting almost half his threes, to, he had 1 really bad game and an 0 for 2 night, whatever, but 1 really bad shooting game, and now he's down to 38%. And it's like, okay, a little bit above the average. So small sample size theater, but that's the flaw. The Celtics shooting is not what it used to be. That is a flaw. And we saw the worst of it in this game. That led to some of the bad defense. I think one of the themes here is, when you cannot hit a damn shot, then you cannot play good defense. In a game where the Celtics shot, and I'll talk about the 3-point shooting when we come back. I'll talk about the foul that wasn't called and the 3-point shooting when I come back. But when you miss 40 3-pointers, 40, there were 11 of 51. When you miss 40 of those, it's impossible to play great defense, because those tend to be long rebounds, and the opponent runs off of misses, and you end up getting cross-matched. You end up getting lost. You end up giving these points in transition. That's where a lot of the fouls come from, because you're scrambling and they're pressing. I mean, they're pushing, and you just end up out of position and you foul. And that happened. So the bad defense on top of just like poor execution, and then bad lineups. Joe Mazzulla pushing buttons, being like, okay, this guy isn't rebounding. We got to get somebody else in there. Okay, this guy isn't good enough either. We got to get somebody else in there. So you go from Queta to Tillman to Garza to Boucher, back to Queta, back to Garza. Like, it's just the lineups. Joe is searching for the lineups. So at this point, he kind of gets a little bit of a pass, but sometimes in the mixing and matching, you look at the floor and you're like, oh crap, I've got like 3 either non-shooters or unreliable shooters out there. The spacing, there was a stretch in the third quarter, which was bad. But also there was a stretch where Derek White and Peyton Pritchard were out there. Was it Minot, Tillman, and I forget who the other guy was, but it was an unreliable shooter. And you can leave those guys defensively, which means you're putting a lot of pressure on Derek White, who's already struggling. He's trying to create, and there's no angles, there's no spacing. It's just horrible. So that is a problem for the Celtics. The mixing and matching of lineups. Again, Joe's trying to find some kind of answers, but that is a flaw. The Celtics roster is not made up to withstand all of this stuff. So when you've got bad shooting and you've got bad defense and you've got bad rebounding, what do you have with Boston? You don't have enough ISO play to overcome it. You almost had enough with Jaylen Brown. Jaylen, aside from the 0 for 9, had a lot, like 36 points, 13 of 28 overall, 13 of 19 from 3, got to the line 11 times, 10 of 11 from the line. So overall, yeah, Jaylen Brown, great. He had to bail him out in so many different times. A little bit of that from Peyton Pritchard, again, who was 4 of 11, 7 of 15 overall. He operated well inside the paint. He had a nice pass. I think it was to Neemias Queta. He did a good job, but there's not enough creation here. Anthony Simons is struggling with his shooting. 5 of 13 overall, 2 of 8 from 3. That's not going to get the job done. 3 of 3 from the line. He did score 15 points off the bench, but you need to be more efficient. So there's not enough isolation on a night where everything else is bad. You need somebody to be like, all right, get on my back, boys. I'm carrying you to the finish line. Jaylen kind of did that and might have done that, but couldn't. Partly because of that foul. Let's talk about that foul. Let's talk about what's going into the shooting slump when I come back. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. We're here in the meat of the NBA season, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into the same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving you, a new customer, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up. When you do, it'll tell you, hey, here's our budgeting tool. Do you want to use it? You say yes, and sign up and budget only what you can afford to lose. Whatever that disposable income is, that's what you can afford to lose. Set that as your limit. So you're gambling responsibly. Nobody wants anybody to go overboard. FanDuel.com. Sign up. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd is going to help you win your league. He's going to tell you who to start, who to sit, who to trade for. It's all on Locked On Fantasy Basketball, the absolute best, biggest juggernaut of a Locked On podcast and the best fantasy podcast out there. Find it where you found this show. Okay, 2 things here. We're going to start with that foul that wasn't called. So was it 47 seconds left? A couple of wet spots on the floor. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know. It felt colder in the arena. And I don't know if there was condensation or whatever, but a couple of guys slipped. So that happened. Like I said, 47 seconds left. It was Keontae George that slipped in front of Jaylen Brown. Jaylen trips over him. Ball bounces off Keontae George's foot. No call. After the game, there was a pool report. And they said in the pool report, basically, I'll read it to you. During live play, this is from the crew chief. He said, during live play, the crew observed George slip and fall just prior to Brown slipping on the same spot, resulting in the ball becoming loose prior to any contact. The follow-up question was, during the live play, that was your view. Did you have a chance to look at it? Is that still your view of it? And he said, that's still my view after being on the floor in live play. And the follow-up, why is that not a foul? Because the crew observed both players slip and fall prior to any contact, and that's why a foul was not called during live play. Notice that did you have a chance to look at it was not answered in this. The answer there, that's still my view after being on the floor in live play, made it seem like they didn't review the play, which doesn't make any sense to me because after the game, they have plenty of time. They get the question in advance and they have an opportunity to review the play, which they do regularly. And they can say, they have said after reviewing the play, we made a mistake. Look at that play again. And you'll see George slips, falls, and slides. Jaylen Brown, right before the trip, his left foot does slip on that spot, but his right foot is planted. His right foot is planted. And the only reason the ball gets loose is because Keontae George is slipped and fell in front of him, and the ball bounces off his foot. So the play, the way it was called, is absolutely incorrect. I hope the last 2-minute report at least salvages this. Not that it changes anything, but at least they admit that they were wrong because George slips and falls in front of Jaylen Brown. There's no guarantee that even though his left foot slips, that the right leg, which is planted and on firm ground, wouldn't handle the workload and keep Jaylen Brown's balance. And if there was no player in front of him, he would have kept his live dribble, or even he could have picked it up and made a pass or something. But because George was on the floor, the ball went off of his foot, which has to be something. A kick ball, inadvertently, but it's still a kick ball. Celtics ball on the sideline. At the very least, if they say there was no foul, it at the very least had to be a kick ball. It went off his foot. He was sliding. It went off his foot. That is, inadvertent or not, a kick and should have been the Celtics ball. And I don't know what that would have done to the shot clock. I don't know what the shot clock was at, but that should have been something. But it could have been a trip because Jaylen did not fall until he fell into George. So it should have been a trip. But even if through some technical reason you say, no, it's not a trip, it still should have been a kickball. The Celtics should have had that possession. Now, they were down one. There's no guarantee that they score. There's no guarantee that they hit free throws. There's no guarantee that they win. So I don't want to say that that cost them the game, but it cost them a chance. But I never, ever, ever want to put it on an official's call to determine whether you win the game or not. There are a million things that they did before that moment that made that moment irrelevant. Shouldn't have even been that moment. Shouldn't have even happened that way. Because the Celtics had an awful third quarter and not so great second quarter either. But they should have won this thing easily. So they're in a shooting slump. The shots aren't falling. Why? Look, I don't care. I really, honestly, I don't care that they were 11 of 51 from three. I don't care, because the shots weren't exactly falling in the in the other areas either. Like they in the, let's see, they were 6 of 13 on the long mids, so 46%. I mean, that's okay. They did well at the rim, but the mid-range shots were all right. You know, you can argue they were at a better percentage, and the 3-point shots should have been minimized. And here's where I'll agree to an extent. I don't care about 51 3-pointers if they're good 3-pointers. The early offense stuff, I understand from an analytics standpoint, especially with the Celtics. There are not a lot of opportunities to move the ball, touch the paint. The guys that they have, the supporting players that they have out there are not going to be the best at this. But you still have to find some catch and shoots. The early offense pull-up 3-pointers are good looks. They're not falling, and very easy to be a prisoner of the moment of the shots not falling. But the touch the paint, skip, or fire it out to the corner, or swing above the break three. I still want to see some more of that. The good to great stuff. The Celtics offense isn't what it was last year. So sometimes when Derek White has, an in-rhythm step into an early clock 3-point shot, you say, hey, look, that's going to be the best shot you're going to get on a possession. With some of these role players, yeah, this is going to be the best shot you get. But when things aren't, when it's not falling, I would just like to see, come on, just try it. Just try it. I'm not telling you not to shoot 3-pointers, but the process of generating those has to be a little bit better. So again, the number of 51, I don't care about 51. Shoot the 51, but make it at least make some of the defense move. Let's force some mistakes from a team that makes mistakes. Look, the Utah Jazz tried to give that game away. They made mistake after mistake after mistake down the stretch to give the Celtics a chance. When the Celtics took the lead late, they had opportunities because the Jazz were kind of flittering this game away. But I still want to see, against that defense, I want to see a little bit more ball movement. I just want to see a little bit more offense, a little bit better offense. They look, I don't know, they look similar. I don't know what's changed in some of these moments. They're falling back into some habits. All of this pace and playing with tempo, it's not really manifesting itself the way it should. It should look a little bit better. It should look a little bit faster. So I don't know. I don't like how they're generating some of these looks, but I also understand why they're taking some of them, because otherwise the offense might look worse. I don't know. The shooting has been just tough to watch. Overall, this is a rough one. And as far as I'm concerned, this kind of negates the Cavs win, because I didn't expect them to beat the Cavs, and I expected them to win this game. So being 3-5 at this point is probably where I expected them to be, right? As I said, when I did all my stupid math over the weekend, 2-5 out of that opening stretch of 7 games was probably the most likely result. And then winning this game would have been, so they're right where I expect them to be, but this one doesn't sit well with me. I want to see the effort. I want to see that execution. I want to see that mindset of like, hey, let's push and pass and work the ball and make good decisions. And I just don't see that. And for for all of them after the game to talk about the effort wasn't where it needed to be is a problem for me. I'll look at the film. I'll get back to you tomorrow with a closer look at some of the things that are bothering the Celtics. I want to get a better grasp on some of these things, the whys, and we'll get more into that tomorrow. So if you're an everydayer, you're already going to be subscribed. You're already going to be here with me tomorrow. I know you're going to be there with me. If you're new, become an everydayer. Join me Monday through Friday. The show is daily. It's about half an hour, 35 minutes today, but it's free. Bonus podcasts on the weekends when they play. It's on YouTube. If you want to watch the show, get into the comment section there. Share your opinions with everybody, and then share the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.